Hi, in this video I'm going to talk about coastal effects. So there's a number of ways that you can cartographically show coasts and island areas in a more pleasing way. And in QGIS we can actually do this without even having any data for the water. There's some special techniques we can use using the different renderers for creating either the inverted polygon shape burst fill here on the left or the Ben Ray dots on the right from just existing land data in this case without having data for the water, and you can create some really beautiful effects. So I'm going to show you how to do both of these in this video. Okay, so here I have the coastlines project up in QGIS, and this has a number of layers. It has municipalities, forests, roads, airports, and towns. And for this exercise, we're really just going to be using the municipalities and the roads data for some context. And we're zoomed into an island area kind of in southwestern Denmark. So the first step is going to be duplicating the municipalities layer. So I'm going to right click on this and duplicate the layer. And I'm going to rename this duplicated municipal layer water. So I'm going to be using this to symbolize water. And to do this, I'll go ahead and turn this on. And it's a duplicate of the other, so we don't even see it on the map. But for this water layer, instead of a single symbol renderer, I'm going to choose this one called inverted polygons. And what this is going to do is show this layer as the exact opposite of what it is. In other words, since it's islands and land, it's going to invert it and make it everything outside of the land, or in other words, the water. So the map's going to turn completely beige for a second because we're going to have everything covered with this same symbol. So the next step is I'm going to select the simple fill component of the layer stack, and I'm going to change the symbol layer type from simple fill to a shape burst fill, thus creating the inverted polygon shape burst fill effect. And the shape burst fill is a shape burst from on a color ramp between two different colors. And so right now the oceans are this kind of beige color between beige and white, which isn't what we want. So we're going to change the first color here. And we're going to change the first color to an RGB value of 225, 255, 255. We're going to change the second color to a darker blue. It's going to be 166, 206, 227. So now you can see that without any data for the oceans, we're already coming up with a nice effect just by using this inverted polygon renderer, and especially with the shape burst fill component with a blue color ramp. So we can make this a little bit better by tweaking the parameters of the shape burst fill. So I'm going to click the back button, and below here we have some parameters for this shape burst fill beyond the two colors. So I'm going to choose in the shading style, set distance. And this controls how far in millimeters on the screen the gradation between the two colors happens. So 5 millimeters from the coast, in other words. And I'm going to increase this up to about 7 to give it a slightly larger spread. And then the blur strength below that is a nice feature. This controls how smoothly the colors blend between each other. And so if I increase this, it's going to create a smoother effect between the two colors. I'm going to increase this quite a ways in this case, all the way up to 15 to really create a nice smooth effect between the two colors. And this completes the first look. This is a very quick inverted polygon shape burst fill. This is one use case for this. You can also use this same technique if you have a study area boundary. You can use this technique to create a mask around your study area and create the study area kind of popping off the map a little bit. So that's another use case that you could use this same workflow on. And you can definitely experiment with adjusting these colors and some of the other settings with the shape burst fill renderer in this coastal vignette situation and see if you can improve this. So we certainly have our own aesthetic, and this is just one set of blues and settings for this. And you may want to experiment with it and come up with other looks. Sometimes it's also interesting to invert this and make the darker color close to the coast, which can be kind of counterintuitive, but can also look nice. And we're actually going to try that in the next situation where we work on creating Ben Ray dots. So Ben ray dots are another very popular coastal effect, and Ben ray dots are the technology used in newsprint to print photographs in the newspaper using little dots. And so we're going to use kind of a QGIS-y version of that to create a stippled effect around the coast. So I'm going to create another duplicated copy of municipalities, and I'll name this one dots. And for now, I'm going to turn off the water layer underneath. I'll come back to that at the end. And again, for dots, I'm going to change this to an inverted polygon renderer. So again, we'll get the beige map for a second. And I'll select the simple fill again, but this time, instead of choosing shape burst fill, I'm going to choose point pattern fill as the symbol layer type. And we get an array of red dots. So this is slightly different order than it is in the directions, but for a demonstration, I'm going to change the color of these first. So instead of these being a big red dot, I'm going to change the color to the same color that was used in the dark blue in the shape burst fill at the beginning of this video. So that RGB value is 166 for the red, 206 for the green, and 227 for blue. And it creates that same blue color. And I'll change the stroke style to no pen, so they're just blue dots in the ocean. And this will make a little more sense as I adjust the other parameters for this demonstration. So we have some parameters for this point pattern fill. So now I'm moving away from the simple marker up to the point pattern fill part of this symbol stack. And here we have parameters for how those points are arrayed on the map. So there's a horizontal and vertical distance, which are both by default 15 millimeters. So I'm going to change the horizontal distance to 1.5 millimeters, put them very close together. And for the vertical, I'll make that 1, or 1.2. And now it essentially looks blue because the dots are so large and spaced so closely together. So let me reduce the size of those dots. Instead of a size of 2, we're going to make those 0.8. So now we can see those dots a little bit better on the map, and they're a regular grid. The last thing we're going to do is adjust the offset to create a more interesting pattern than this completely regular grid. So I'm going to set the horizontal displacement to 0.75. And you can see that kind of shifts them so that it's almost like a row of bricks where one is halfway under the next line. And we get a much more interesting looking grid with this arrangement. Okay, so now I'm going to select this point pattern fill, and off to the right we have this green plus button for adding another symbol layer. And I'm going to add another symbol layer to this symbol stack, and it's always a simple fill by default. And instead of simple fill, I'm going to make this a shape burst fill. So we're combining a shape burst fill with a point pattern fill. I'm going to make this first color white, and then I'm going to make this completely transparent. And if you don't make that white first, the transparency sometimes doesn't work. It may be a bug in QGIS, but this is just a little tip that I've learned. Make it white first, and then you can make it completely transparent and get the effect to work. So again, I'm going to use, under shading style, the set distance method. And instead of 5, I'm going to reduce that to 3. And I'm going to increase the blur strength all the way up to 18. And now you're starting to see this effect. Let me zoom in a little closer to some of these island areas, and you can see the stippling along the coast. And of course, you can adjust how far that goes simply by increasing this set distance of the shape burst fill above. And that will, as you increase that, it'll increase the distance of the dots extend from the coast. So you can experiment with that. Next, I'm going to expand layer rendering, and I'm going to employ a blending mode on this shape burst fill. I'm going to set the blending mode to multiply. And I don't have anything underneath right now, so I will not see that. And it may be that this subtle effect with just the dots and a white background suits your cartographic needs. This is one look, but we're going to take it a step further and we're going to incorporate the water layer that we worked with in the beginning of this video with inverted polygon shape burst fill to finish this Ben Ray dot look. So I'm going to turn the water layer on. And here, instead of having the colors in the shape burst fill go from light to dark blue, I'm going to invert those and make them go from dark blue to light blue. So first I'm going to make this a little easier, I'm going to copy this blue color, and then I'm going to use the pick color tool to make this color that light blue, and then click this first one and paste the dark blue there so that I can quickly invert those colors. So that is the finished effect. It's another look for coastlines. And again, we get that kind of nice stippling near the coast in this case. And again, you can experiment with all the settings here to see if there's other tweaks that you like better. But you can see in fairly short order, you can end up with some really nice looks without having any data for it. And with a little bit of tweaking, you can probably even improve those. You can even use this effect for the dots. Another thing you'll see sometimes with the point pattern fill is to use an SVG icon of wavy lines to create scattered wave icons in the ocean. So that's something you also may want to experiment with. You know enough now to take these tools and do your own cartographic experimentation on your maps.